With a wish. Thanks. With a wish for all beings to be free. Free of the constriction and contraction of held belief systems and thought patterns. Free of the automatic reactivity of held emotional patterns. And free of distorted perception. The biggest one being there is me and there is everything out there. I will always go for refuge to alive, vibrant, radiant, spacious awareness until awareness is ongoing, like the flow of a river. Enthused by wisdom and compassion. Today, in the presence of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, of any time and or any lineage or none, I generate the mind of full awakening for the benefit of all beings. As long as space remains, as long as beings remain, may I manifest in such a way to ease and dispel the miseries in the universe. Okay. As usual, I have no idea what will come out of my mouth. I'm feeling some urgency to help all of us, including myself, break through the very things I mentioned in the beginning of the refuge prayer. It's all very fine and good and well-intentioned to take refuge in whatever, however that arises for us. But what does that actually mean when we are so attached to our belief systems, even when we see them? How many of us have seen the same belief system come up over and over again? They go, oh yeah, that's a belief system. And yet, isn't it our habit and our instinct to grab back at it? So I have something that occurred in France. I've shared a couple places, if you've heard it before. Well, lucky you, you get it again, yes? There's often seems to be a conflict. If you guys are game for this, I think it's going to come out anyway. There seems to be a conflict between our survival instinct, which is very strong, or we wouldn't be here as a species, would we? And what we rest in or as refuge. And what arose in trance is very, very simple. And maybe before we start Chenrezig, it might be helpful to somebody. It was very helpful to me. So what arose was the recognition that it's the body's job from birth to survive. Of course, that seems obvious when I see it that clearly. It's just what's built in. And if we watch my experience, check it out for yourself if you want. My experience is with sitting with that not verbally at first, but with enthusiasm. An infant will scream when they need to eat, sleep when they need to sleep, for the most part. Sometimes wires get crossed. But they are already, on some level, very busy surviving, doing what is needed to survive. And then as we get older, we learn language. We learn from our families in so many different ways. We learn how to name things. We learn what things are dangerous. Sometimes from our families saying, this is dangerous. Don't touch the hot stove. Don't run into the street. Okay, so they're in there. The trouble is we start building stories about everything. And that to me became so clear. That's just part of the survival instinct. If you were abused as a child, probably you made the story, or the story came up, that there was something wrong with you, that you weren't good enough, that if you would just act differently or be differently or whatever, things would be okay. I think if this is the case for us, whatever the abuse might have been or how we perceived it, we're perceiving it as a very young child who is dependent. That child is absolutely dependent. That child can't go out and buy a house or rent a house or get a job or buy food or any of the things that are needed to survive. And doesn't it make such perfect sense that whatever drives those thoughts, feelings, and perceptions would come up with this? Can't say that I think it's really the 5-year-old doing it, just perhaps the instinct that I can't really put into words, or 3-year-old. The only way to control our environment at that age when we are dependent makes perfect sense that we would point at ourselves. Okay, well, at least I could be kinder, or I could not yell, or I could do all the 100 million things that seem to get us in trouble. Because then at least there is a chance to change things. And I can tell you from the many, many, many people that I have sat with, and they've told me their stories. I've looked them in the eye with open-heartedness and said, none of that was your fault. It had nothing to do with you. And I've watched that bounce off in a way that might seem surprising to you, but makes sense to me. The survival method is, it's my fault. Even if I sit there absolutely certain with you and say, of course it's not your fault. Look at it as an adult. You were 3, 4, 5, maybe younger. How could anything about you be your fault? It's not your fault. And yet, that's one of the hardest billblahs of thought pattern and emotional pattern to let go of. So strongly embedded. Yikes. And then we might try to start fighting that with our logic. Oh, that's not true. Well, I don't know. You guys probably, most of you, figured out logic doesn't change those belief systems and emotional patterns. They're deeply in there. And the stories and the reactive feelings, usually from a very, very young age. And we take all those thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, and they're with us. And they skew, they twist how we view the world. We're just carrying them along with us. So, how do we let that start to loosen? Have you noticed that if you in any way try to fight your survival instinct, it gets much stronger? What occurred in France for me was to really notice how hard that survival instinct is working, those thoughts, feelings, and perceptions to try to keep us alive, safe, maybe even loved, which is pretty necessary for most of us. And instead of fighting it, it became clear I can offer that love. It's my body. It's created all of this. Have you ever had a massage or a healing where someone touched a certain part of your body and you burst into tears? Just boom, this rawness came out. It's another thing our body does for us, that instinct does for us. It holds things when it's not this conscious like thought like we express it or logic. If something's too strong, it packs it away and holds it for us. And when that gets touched by a therapist or a healer or a massage person, boom, out it comes. And we're shocked, usually, or maybe relieved, or maybe terrified, or any kind of reaction that is instinctive and habitual for us. So maybe instead of, and you may not do this, I know so many people that complain about their body. Oh, I'm getting older. I have so many aches and pains. It's great to acknowledge that we have aches and pains. Many of us do. We're not going to pretend that isn't there. At the same time, can we hold compassion, love, and presence with that whole structure of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions that has arisen with the intention to help us survive? It's not useful anymore, or maybe it is. Have you ever had one of those stripped from you when you weren't ready and gone into terror mode? But we can bring love. We are not dependent beings anymore, even though sometimes we feel like it, probably. There's still a child in there. Yes? So we can bring love, compassion for ourselves, and we can start to recognize everybody else's structures of protection, thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, that we're all bouncing off of each other. We can have compassion for those too. This does not mean we allow harm to come to ourselves because we understand why somebody else may be doing something. That's not the point either. It's a love that's bigger than that, open, responsive to all of us. And I also realized on some level that it is because we are in this body trying to survive with all this structure that's been built. You could call it a mask, but how do we take it off without our every instinct yelling, no, don't do that. You'll be humiliated. You'll be ridiculed. You'll be left all alone by yourself. No one will love you ever. We need these things. Don't you understand? If you meet that with love, when you notice it, first we have to notice it. Things will change. Things will shift in their own time. We can't force them, in my experience. And we definitely can't force them with our logic. Go ahead and try. Might help a little. This form that we arose in, not independently. We didn't create this thing we call I by ourselves. And yet it feels like I'm an independent I. I am this, I am that. All a creation of that structure. And everything we encountered, every being we encountered, check out what that I is if you feel like. And then open your heart. You did survive without a human form, not necessarily Homo sapien. How would we have the combination of the ability to notice the structure that is desperately trying to keep us from engaging life freshly in every moment? Wow. And be able to receive teachings or however things begin to open for you that allow us to see that structure. And without banging on it, it will win, I promise, in the long run. How many of us have started teachings? That's why I love Chenrezig, one of the many reasons. And then used the teachings to figure out how to stay safe, how to be loved, what you're doing wrong. Oh, okay, maybe if you finally get this right with your intellectual understanding, everything will be okay. No, it won't. You're going to die. Your form's going to die. It's going to deteriorate. But the body's created to ignore that, to say, I'm surviving. Isn't that amazing? I don't know, it amazes me. And we can be gentle with that. You're not going to sneak up on your body and go, okay, here's the truth, buddy, you're going to die. It's just not going to happen. We all know that. What effect? Do we live that way every moment? Knowing this moment could be our last? Of course not. Our body does not, or that structure. Yeah, you don't do that. That's not a good thing to do. So we can have great gentleness and open-heartedness that all of us, every being that's alive, is trying to survive. We were lucky enough, even though it's quite painful, quite often, to be born in this body where we have a chance to open, not to just grab whatever teachings we like to try to get them to be part of that structure, but to allow the teachings gently. And naturally, to start to unravel that. Most common question to Lama Lena: am I doing it right? Am I getting somewhere? Well, that's motivation to practice, so okay. Nowhere to get, no thing to get rid of. But we practice until that's obvious. So Chenrezig, however it's going to arise today, well, it'd be silly for me to say what it has the potential to do, wouldn't it? Because then how many of us would go, oh, okay, I'll make it do that. Or, oh, it feels like I don't even know what it's doing. That can't be right. Well, it's righter than anything else, right? How do we stop fighting? Oh, so many methods. How many is it? 100,000, something like that. Different ways, 80,000. I don't remember the numbers very well. Different ways to try to poke at that from different directions. Chenrezig, for me, as it arises because you're here, because it arises together. For me, it may not be this way for you. Allows shifts to occur. And if we can keep from grabbing whatever occurs and trying to stick it into that structure of understanding, if we can, with openness and curiosity, not to fix it, not to understand it, awe, maybe, just let it be. And in the moments that may arise, of openness. Well, actually, I can't use any words to describe it, and I don't want to. Whatever words I would use to describe, and it will be slightly different for all of us, we'll just squish it. There's a reason every single teaching has an intention that anything we practice be of benefit to others. I think it's a nice attempt to have us not grab stuff and try to hold on to it for ourselves. Let it all go. And watch this structure when you can. Grab on to anything just to distract you. Because for this structure, it feels like to that structure we're pointing at death. When in fact, we're inviting life. And they may not be that different. Okay, that's enough words. I've been really being pulled to do the green Tara blessing. It could just as well be a Chenrezig blessing. But we're in Chenrezig, right? But we spend a few minutes or several minutes quietly in each of the kayas that are pointed at in the Chenrezig. I hope that sometimes you do this practice on your own because you get to, it's your timing instead of my timing. At least enough to let that part of us that wants to figure out, am I doing it right? Am I getting anything from this? What should I be getting? What is blah, blah, blah. Anything I share with you is my experience. Your experience will open differently. So without trying to get anything, with the hope that whatever we do today is a benefit somewhere in the universe to some being. But we rest in a sense of loving or being loved. Doesn't matter. Same deal. May just be a deep sense of openness and relaxation. I can give you some of the methods that people find to call this up. But once you start noticing, perhaps by this practice, perhaps you just notice how often that warm wave of openness, love, there is no word to describe it. How often it arises when we're not self-focused into this structure and listening to our thoughts and trying to figure things out. Those moments of just relaxing. The wave arises all the time. Actually, what's pointed at is the true bodhisattva. True bodhisattva does not have an I involved. It's just openness. It is, I love the analogy, it is the water from which the wave arises. Never made of anything but the water. In its own form, always changing. There's no such thing as a static wave, is there? There's really no such thing as a static you. It's only the you of this moment. Most of us instinctively thinking, figuring, describing, grasping, pushing away. But beyond that, under that, the water. In this moment, in every moment. So whatever stimulus, or perhaps you're just experiencing a sense right now of nothing I'm going to name. And rest right there. And bring some awareness, perhaps, to your heart chakra. as your heart chakra. Confusing. I'm going to stop with the words. Simply allow the relaxation that may arise. If you choose to visualize a 1,000-petaled lotus made of light, wonderful. That lotus or heart, we keep closed. There we are with that survival instinct. We need to protect it. We need to not get hurt. Hear that survivor speaking? And for a moment in resting, we may relax in a safe place. We're safe. And that may open. If you wish to visualize a 1,000-petaled lotus of light, opening, blossoming. Let the feel of that fill you. You may experience it in your heart chakra. You may experience it in your whole body. You may experience it without an inside or outside. However it arises, whenever you practice, just rest there. If you wish to picture 6 inner petals of different light, each of which has a seed syllable of the mantra sitting on it. Om Mani, 6 syllables. Om Ma Ni Pe Me Om. And you may wish to start saying the mantra quietly. When you're doing this on your own, feel free to sing it to the universe. It is simply, for thousands of years, the sound that has been used to express that openness I'm pointing at. Feel it if you're going to say it. You can feel it rising in your body from deep within. You can feel it coming through the heart chakra, if that's where your awareness is. Up through the throat chakra, up through the crown chakra. And as you feel the vibration of that sound, wow. As you hear the mantra, are you hearing it inside because of the vibration or your vocal cords? Or are you hearing it outside because of your ear organ? Because you are producing sound which has sound waves going out. There's no way to differentiate, is there? And in this practice, as those 6 petals start to turn, and the 6 colors that represent all light start to blend, they become white light, not like a spotlight, but a warm white light, alive, vibrant, sparkly, if you will. And that light fills all the 1,000 petals, allowing them to extend, not held in their petal form, into rays of that warm light, waves of that warm light, carrying the sound of openness. Om Mani Padme Hum. And the vibration of aliveness. The sensation, feeling of whatever arises in your experience. But don't look for it by separating yourself. Simply be it. Thousand petals, rays, reaching out into the universe, past, present, future, imaginary time. No limitation, no boundaries. To the edge of the universe, beyond, no boundary. To the smallest cell of your body, something so large we can't perceive it. No boundaries. Limitless rays touching seems right to say limitless beings. Allowing them to relax and experience the sound, vibration, light waves, really of the universe. Some of those as they relax and radiate from their being, carrying the sound, the vibration, touching more beings, touching you again and again. The refuge of Nirmanakaya as it actually is. When for a moment our structure is not containing us so tightly. And we can rest right there as that. There may be a part of us that wants to pull back. Remember, I talked about that instinct. Oh, I don't want to let anybody else's light into me. I want to hold mine. You can just smile and laugh. We're not inviting other people's Bill Blah structure to come into our heart. We have enough of our own. Thank you very much. We're inviting the true nature of all life. Interacting without the describer, the structure. Aliveness as it really is. Beyond, not instead of, beyond the survival instinct. On those days when you just can't, because perhaps the survival instinct is especially strong. Those light rays, sound, vibration touch all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that ever have been, ever are, and ever will be. And perhaps you can relax at that point, or it can be relaxation at that point to allow that to come right back into you. Refuge. Not as a word, not as an intellectual understanding. Experiential refuge. Let it grow. The rays of light, or stay right where you are. Matters not a whit. But in the practice, it's said to have allowed. Visualize, feel, sense an infinite number of rays of light, touching an infinite number of beings, until there is no thing but light, vibration, sound. Smile if you find yourself pulling back in and looking at that. Infinite rays, infinite being, no thing but light. You are that light. Sound, vibration, aliveness, luminosity, radiance. The words won't touch it. A wonderful phrase that says, let the child luminosity, that which we think is held in our consciousness, heart, whatever, unite with the mother luminosity, always present. Many experiences may arise. They will arise without the seer, the one who describes everything. There's awareness. But not limited. You're lucky enough to fall in as that. Where dharmas come from, where omniscience is. I could go on describing, but what's the point? Your form will demand that you return. Well, not return, just aware in a different. I'm not going to try with words. When you have to pee, or the phone rings, or the alarm goes off, that's when the describer will come back and try to tell you what happened. It's okay. The refuge is named Sambhogakaya. Very spark of aliveness in every being. If, as we will, we try to grasp it, it's gone. Arises freshly only in this moment, every moment. Beyond description, beyond describer. lovely moment, perhaps, as you rest back in your form, to be especially gentle with your survival instinct, which may start screaming. It's the refuge where there is no loneliness, no isolation, no stories, no reactive emotion. All sorts of names are placed on it, but the harder we try to make that happen, the less likely it is that it can naturally arise. Isn't that just a bummer? And then right there, maybe not. I haven't had that experience, so I cannot share it like that. The spaciousness from which, spaciousness within which the alive, radiant, indescribable dances, permeates. The spaciousness is never separate from the radiant aliveness, potential for life. It is the dance of those from which anything and everything can arise. Just had an image of that spaciousness as it's said it's beyond time and space. So the word is silly to say spaciousness. No word describes Dharmakaya aspect of heart mind. Where you might have an experience of everything arising being dissolving all at once in every moment, not in a past or a present or a future. If you try to get that one intellectually, it hurts our brains, most of our brains. Beyond duality, no up, down, good, bad. No thing to hold on to. Utterly frightening to some of us if we don't notice the luminosity that permeates it. It's not an it. Find that your survival instinct, or whatever you want to call it, the I of you, starts flailing, please offer it love, understanding. What do you mean there's no thing to hold on to? What are you talking about? How are we ever going to survive? Who will we be if we don't know what's right and wrong? Who will I be? We have to be an I to survive. Well, isn't that how most of us react? Except for those moments of openness. Don't bump on it. Just love it. We can, and it's often taught, to rest in the three kayas: manifestation, interactive, interpenetrating manifestation, luminosity. These are just words. Spark of life present in every being. Light, clear light, I don't care what we call it. And the infinite, non-dual, beyond time and space, and yet containing all time and all space in this moment. Called Dharmakaya. Sometimes we're taught to notice them separately, but never ever forget they cannot be separate. They are utterly interactive, interpenetrating. They're not days. I think that might be enough for today. Just feel free to wander off and rest wherever you might be. Whatever might have arisen by our being to share this time together. May we not grasp, push away, try to figure out, at least for a moment, let us not bring it back into our sense of I. Let it naturally radiate out into the universe as it will, organically, touching all beings. May all beings have such opportunity. May all beings be free. And may we keep walking. Thank you all for being here today and allowing this to happen. Till next time.